Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the International Career Panel in 2021. My name is Joe Hoff, and I'm the Director of the Office of Global Education and Engagement at UNC Charlotte within the Office of International Programs. And we are happy again to once have this International Career Panel, which we collaborate with the Young Professionals of the World Affairs Council of Charlotte, as well as the University Career Center. And right now, I'd like to introduce Patrick Madsen, who is the Executive Director of the University Career Center. He's going to lead us with a workshop on how to develop international careers. Take it away, Patrick.
All right, thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Hello, my UNC Charlotte students and my non-UNC Charlotte students. For my non-UNC Charlotte students, if you're looking for some really cool academic programs, you have a great university in your backyard. So I'm glad to be here tonight. So I have you all for about 3 to 4 hours, and we're going to talk about international resumes. I'm just kidding. We're not going to do that. I have about 20 to 25 minutes with you guys. And what I want to do is spend some time talking with you about this whole idea of working internationally and how you need to frame your mind to get ready to go do that kind of stuff. So when you're thinking about it, what it entails is, one, understanding your brand and what it is you're marketing, and and how to be able to express to these employers the competencies you have, the skills you have, and the experience that will matter to them. It's a matter of understanding who's out there. So what your target is going to be. So it's one thing to say, I want to work international, but where? What type of industry? What type of company? What type of work do you see yourself doing? And then I'll touch on some different resources that might be useful for you, but also things that you're going to want to collect even more information around as you start to plan out that international career for yourself. So the brand is all about who you are and what is it that you're selling. So a lot of times when you're looking at the international career and going overseas, there's some things that you're going to be communicating to the employer. One, these employers are going to start to see the skills that you have around language ability. They're going to start to see your motivation, because if you're looking for jobs overseas, there's clear motivation there that you're going to be okay with a geographic flexibility, this idea that you want to get in and experience new cultures, new organizations, and being able to adapt to new environments. So those are selling points that you're going to really want to beef up and be able to explain to the employer that you have the right skills that they're looking for. So how might you do that? One is proving to the employer the language ability and the cultural understanding that you have for the geographic target that you're going for. Two, you might want to express to them the types of skills that their organization might be looking for. So it might be strategy, it might be project management, it might be product management. So showcasing those kinds of skills and the knowledge sets that you have, whether it's on your resume or your LinkedIn ability. And of course, some general knowledge around what does global business look like in their area and whatnot. Now, there's going to be some challenges as you start to look at employment internationally. So obviously at the top of everybody's mind right now is this thing called COVID. And a lot of the world is, I don't want to say shut down, but it's in a different modality right now. So there's going to be those conditions that you're going to be dealing with for probably maybe a year, maybe even a couple years as things start to change and we start to shake off some of those issues that we're dealing with the pandemic. Aside from that, when you're looking at employment in different geographic locations overseas, it behooves you to get a sense of the economic conditions on the ground. So do your research, understand what's going on, the job prospects, the types of industries that might exist there, and making sure that you understand it's going to be a complex situation. Employers are going to want to know about your commitment. So when you're thinking about a cover letter, when you're thinking about the interview, when you're thinking about doing some great networking with those that are in organizations that you're targeting, helping them to understand your interest, your motivation, and the commitment that you have to work overseas. So there's going to be a difference between the candidate that likes the idea of working overseas and the candidate that is really motivated and interested and excited about that type of opportunity. So they're going to be looking for that type of motivation. And then, of course, understanding the restrictions, visa restrictions that each country might have. And I'm going to show you a resource that's out there, especially for our UNC Charlotte students. But then there's a few others that are out there for non-UNC Charlotte students as well. And of course, there's going to be a cost. And we'll talk a little bit about that in just one second. So when you're thinking about your brand, it goes down to your marketing materials. So this is being able to explain to the employer what is it that you have to offer, the excitement and the motivation and the commitment that you have, and being able to project that brand around the world, or in, of course, the geographic target you're looking for. So what goes into marketing yourself? On paper. So you're still going to have a resume, but understanding that each country has a different look and feel for their resume. So the Eurozone resume or CV is going to look slightly different than what you might have for Australia or South America, and even the countries that make up South America. Cover letters and personal statements or letters of intent, you're going to want to build those out, and that's your opportunity to not just show them what's on paper, but how it relates to their organization, how it relates to that world that you're trying to go into. Online is going to be huge. Now, you might see Facebook and Twitter on there. LinkedIn should be your top place to be, and really craft out your LinkedIn profile so that people will understand, again, those competencies that you have, the knowledge sets that you have, and then, of course, the type of industry that you're trying to go into. Sooner or later, you're going to have that interview, whether it's in person or these days virtual. So being able to project that brand and connect with them and showcase how you might fit into their organization is going to be a very big thing. For my UNC Charlotte students, you have the career office to help you hone that brand to make sure that you are expressing, the world that you're trying to go into. For my non-UNC Charlotte students, there's a lot of wonderful resources out there for you to help build your brand and hone it so that you can explain to employers what you have to offer. All right, finding the targets. Now that you have your brand, have the competencies and the skills and the knowledge sets that you're expressing out there, who's the target? Who's out there for you? Essentially, there are three types of organizations. I'm going to loosely say there's three types of organizations. One are your pure international organizations. So those are the ones that live in another country, they're only in that country, and that might be a target for you to look into. The second might be what we call a multinational company. So it might be a company like Johnson & Johnson, where they're found in multiple countries, if you will, and they can switch back and forth. And then the third one is your non-governmental organization. So these are going to be ones like the United Nations, for example. So there's a lot of NGOs that exist out there that might give you some great opportunity if you're looking to go overseas. Two other resources that I want you to snap a picture on, if you will, is Going Global. So Going Global is a system that we have in this university that will give you a lot more information, in-depth information by country, has internships that are posted, full-time opportunities that are posted, but also visa guides to help you understand any employment restrictions that might exist. Going Global is the top resource that is out there. Going Global does have some free resources for my non-UNC Charlotte students to help you get started. The second one is the UniWorld, also a great opportunity for you to start figuring out what companies exist in different countries as you start to hone that target that you might have. It gives you some ideas of Going Global and, of course, UniWorld. Idealist is another big one. So for those of you who are really interested in NGOs or the nonprofit world, Idealist is the top place for you to go to because it has opportunities worldwide that you can start to review, but also my favorite, the organization list. So this is where you start to think through what are the topics or the areas of focus that I want to get into. This will help you understand what organizations exist out there that are working in the space that you hopefully want to get into as well. And then my favorite that I used to use with students from a long time ago is AmCham. So being able to find the American Chamber of Commerce and name your country to start to see those multinational companies that might exist in those countries as well. Transitions Abroad is another one to help you start to figure out what types of organizations might exist out there. And then, of course, a few others around NGOs, just to give you some additional resources on companies and organizations that might exist. And then finally, a fan favorite, LinkedIn. This is used by 94% of all industries, all businesses worldwide, not just to help you network with people, but to source talent and also to provide you some really great information on organizations that exist, again, around the world. Use this to help you figure out what industries exist and then the types of organizations that are out there. What I love about LinkedIn is that it gives you great information on company, great information on people that you might already be connected to, and it's a perfect opportunity for you to start talking to people from around the world to get their advice, their information on how you can continue to hone your targets, hone your brand, and make sure that they're connecting well. Really good information for you to have in there. It only works if you have a strong profile on LinkedIn yourself. So please, please, please start looking through how do you build out that profile? How do you make sure your competencies and skills are clearly explained on this type of venue? I'm going to say that the high majority of recruiters are going to use LinkedIn to source talent. So it's a really good thing for you to be on there. Do you have to pay money for LinkedIn? No. Use the free version. You can get a lot of great things that are out there. The other thing with LinkedIn is it has a lot of groups that you can join based on industry, based on job type, based on many other different things. It's a great opportunity for you to gain more information and learn more about what might be out there. And finally, as you're starting to think through the types of resources that exist to get you plugged into this type of thing, a couple that I'm just going to throw out there: internationaljobs.com. Something that's worth looking at. DevX, I believe it's .org, is one of my favorite websites to be reviewing. It's got a lot of great information around international development, organization stuff, topic information. It gives you some great career ideas so that you can start to think through, what space do you want to play in. And then another personal favorite of mine is Net Impact, and you can Google that just to find additional information. These types of websites and many others will help you start to really dig into the types of resources that exist out there for you to not only build your international career, but to expand it as you go along. So the last part I want to make sure to bring to your attention is the finances behind international careers, things you want to think about as you are planning out your target overseas. One, the biggest thing is the visa and work permits. Every country is going to be different, and every country is going to be fluid in how they present those. So it's not just America that has different standards, and that seems like a moving target sometimes. A lot of countries have those as well. So you're going to want to do your research on, if you're targeting Portugal, for example, what are the visa requirements? What does it take to get that work permit? How long does it take? Any kind of fees or medical checks or police checks or photos that you might need to have. Understand the deep dive on that. When I traveled to a country called Azerbaijan, there was a lot of stuff that I had to do, including getting multiple photos, recent photos. I had to submit my passport to the consulate, wait for them to approve it, do some more documentation, and then understand the visa process when I landed boots on the ground to get through the checks and balances, if you will. So understanding the visa, understanding the work permits, understanding all that process is going to be very, very important. Remember that there's going to be finances around getting there. So making sure that you're able to fly there. Is the company going to pay for that? Do you have to pay for that? What's all the insurance going to look like? How much insurance do you need if you're working overseas? So understanding those bits and pieces are going to be important for you as well. Aside from getting there, what's going to happen when you are there? So how are you going to be able to support yourself? So obviously we're hoping that you're going to get paid by the organization, but what do the living costs look like in that location? How does your salary or the pay that you're going to get compare to those living standards so that you can be living the way that you would like to live? What types of accommodations will the company and the organization have, or do you have to go find accommodations on your own? So doing the research around not just the country, but the city that you might decide to live in, the cost of living there, how do people live, where do people find accommodations? Resources like Going Global will help you find that information and collect it so you can develop a very good and strong action plan for yourself. So like I said, making sure that you're understanding the take-home pay, what are the benefits of the organization that they're offering you, how do you open up a bank account for yourself, or will the bank account you currently have work in the country that you're trying to go into, and then of course all the way down to being able to communicate with your loved ones and friends and family, if you will. And then finally, you have resources, you have the finances, creating your timeline. So obviously, if you want to work overseas, you can start applying now, but understanding that there is a process, understanding that there's still an interview process, understanding that how long will it take you to do the research on the country that you want to go into, the types of organizations that exist there, the types of organizations that you want to work for, and then all the way through making sure that you have the funding available to make it happen, making sure that you are thinking through the application and whatnot, and making sure that you have that time, the action plan going. So the biggest tip that I have as I start to close this out and turn it back over to my colleague is have the timeline, start early, and really develop a solid plan of what do you see yourself doing overseas? What types of countries would you like to target? And then getting a good sense of what organizations exist in that space. Dr. Huff, I'm going to turn it back over to you. If you'd like me to take a few questions, I'm happy to for the 5 or so minutes that I have with you guys.
Sure, we actually have a few more minutes than that.
Oh, good.
So why don't we?
I talked too fast tonight, didn't I?
You did. You were great. Very efficient. Very efficient. So we'll open it up. If anybody wants to place any questions in the question and answer section.
And while they're doing that, I'll give a couple of additional things to think about. So, a lot of times people think that the only way I can get experience is through the full-time experience or internships that exist out there. Those are nice. Those give you some very powerful learning experiences. Remember, micro internships also exist these days. So Parker Dewey is going to be a great website for you to gain those extra skills that might be very sellable to organizations. I would also encourage you to start thinking through groups such as The Forage to develop simulations to practice things like project management or strategy development that a lot of companies are starting to look for. And then also remember things like Coursera and EDX to really add more content knowledge to your base. So you should always be learning.
Patrick, could you explain a little more for the UNC Charlotte students, what is in the Going Global resource? What's available there?
Yeah, and for Austin, the micro internships was Parker Dewey. Parker Dewey. You can Google that and you'll find it out there. For my UNC Charlotte students, do UNCC and you'll get to our branded site. So Going Global is a really great resource that we share with our partners. And basically what it has is country information. So if you want to get a sense of the country, the work visas that exist there, Going Global also has job specific search sites by country. So ones that they've vetted that give you a really good starting place to see how do I find a job in Australia? So, every country has its own nuances, if you will. It does have active listings for internships and jobs, so you can start to see what's already posted and of course, apply through those procedures and a number of other different resources. I would say for our UNC Charlotte students, Going Global will be your first stop. And I want you to jump in there, get a sense of what's going on, read through some of the different things. And then at that point, make an appointment with a career coach so that we can start to hone in on what that target that you're looking at. And then there's going to be additional resources that we can recommend along the way.
And that's available to both domestic and international students, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So it's for UNC Charlotte students, jump in there. Everything's free in there. And I believe even as alums, everything in there will be free for life as well.
Okay, and here's a good question. Are there challenges in validating your education or degree in another country?
There can be sometimes, and I think that you'll get a sense of what is problematic or what is complex by actually talking to people in those countries. So once you start digging out that kind of stuff and trying to figure out how do you do the translating of degrees, if that's the case, or making sure that they understand any kind of transcripts that they might ask for. So it also depends on some companies. So some companies, they're going to rely more on your CV or your resume and not necessarily your transcripts, but as you start to build a network, those kind of things will become more clear.
All right, and here's a question. I'm Joseph from Claremont Graduate University in California. I have a LinkedIn account, but I have been told that it is infrequently used in many countries, even ones that are fairly well developed. Would you be able to speak to which countries have business communities that are fairly well engaged on LinkedIn? That's interesting to me because I have many Indian contacts. They use it all the time, for example, in India.
Yeah, and I'd be curious to see more about that, and it may very well be true. I would say that a lot of industries are going to start digging deeper in there. Your Eurozone is definitely going to be using it. I've seen a lot of countries in South America that have been using it already, so it'll be interesting to see who's not using it. But the more important is that it's got millions of companies researched in there and a lot of great opportunities to start your networking in terms of international careers. So use LinkedIn, that's my big advice, but also make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date and you're engaging in the process. What I have found with students over the years is that you might just kind of create a LinkedIn profile and then you just leave it alone. You don't want to do that. If you're really creating that timeline, that profile that you're trying to build out there, you want to start talking with people in the countries that you're hoping for, and more specifically the companies of interest.
Here's another question for you. Would you recommend if I do an internship, for example, in a German company in Germany over the summer, and then apply to work at their American branch, or just start the internship in America from the start?
That
That's a
depends
tough
on,
one.
yeah, I mean, that depends on your particular interests. I mean, do you want to experience the living and working in Germany? Then go for that. If you are just trying to break into a company, I mean, the Charlotte area has a ton of German companies, and so those are multinational companies. And so sometimes you might find that it's easier to start off with the job or internship in country because you're right here. And then as you build your international career, you start building it internal to that organization so that maybe you get a position overseas in their German branch, if you will.
And
So it kind
Patrick,
of depends.
while you're on, could you explain what a career coach in your office might do for UNC Charlotte students?
Yeah, good question. So our career coaches don't make an appointment just to get your resume reviewed. Make an appointment to strategize, to create that action plan. And that gives you that good solid hour. And if you need other appointment hours, that's fine as well, for them to hear what it is you're trying to do, hone our resources to your needs, and then help you build that plan so that you are moving forward towards your target. And so that's kind of what that space is for. Our career coaches are divided up based on career communities, and you can learn about those career communities on our website. For those of you who are going into the social impact or NGOs, you'll have a different career coach than those who might be going into the engineering field but want to work overseas. What they do is they're going to help you understand the resources and some of the strategies that are based on those groupings of industries, if you will, or industry clusters. We call them career communities. Sounds cooler.
All right, here's another question. On your UNC Charlotte page, I see you're affiliated with the Fulbright program. Could you speak to that organization, maybe how they could relate to future career opportunities? You have Fulbright? We also have Fulbright on our website.
Yeah, it might be my personal profile. Is that what they're referring to? Because I was a Fulbright specialist, which is a
doesn't say, but go ahead. Yes, please,
yeah.
If you want to speak to Fulbright.
Yeah, I can only speak to my experience. So
okay.
I was a Fulbright specialist, which is I'm an expert in my field, and that was sent me overseas to help other countries build career centers and the career sort of process. So that's a different program that Fulbright has than what I think people might be referring to.
Well, I'll speak a little bit to what we offer in the Office of International Programs. The Office of Education Abroad, actually, the director, Brad Sekulich, is the Fulbright advisor for students. And that process usually starts over the summer. And so students start applying, working on their applications, and I believe they're due usually early fall. There should be information, as you said, on their website. Yes, it could lead to career opportunities if you make connections while you're in that country. And so I recommend pursuing that. There are various types of Fulbrights, such as teaching English in another country, as well as doing research in another country. They are competitive. Again, our Director of Education Abroad, Brad Sekulich, can help you kind of think about which country you may wish to apply to, right? Of course, places like Spain and France are probably some of the most competitive. So you may want to consider Indonesia or someplace like that in order to gain access to a Fulbright. Yes, please visit our Office of Education Abroad for a Fulbright appointment, to set up a Fulbright appointment.
And Doug Huff, I'm sorry, Dr. Huff, gosh. I'm going to answer Bianca's question real quick, and then I'm going to leave it over to you because I know the panelists are much more exciting than I am. Bianca, your question is, how do I prepare for language barriers or being around various dialects? I'm going to tell you my personal opinion. Practice, 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 practice. So I taught myself Spanish, again, not high school Spanish, but like retaught myself Spanish by picking up a book, watching Spanish TV, and then practicing with people who are fluent, like native fluent in Spanish. And that slowly got me used to it. So practice, practice, practice. You have those different, what are those, like Rosette Stone or whatever, those exist out there. Those seem to be pretty good, but practice, 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 and you'll eventually get it. So thank you very much for inviting me again. I hope you guys have a fantastic panel.
Thank you very much, Patrick. And we look forward to working with you again in the future.
Yes, have a good night.
Bye-bye. Okay, it's just 6 o'clock. Hello again, my name is Joe Hoffman, and I'm the Director of the Office of Global Education and Engagement within the Office of International Programs at UNC Charlotte. Welcome to all, and especially welcome to our presenters. I'm going to first introduce Rachel Ladenheim, from our office, who will introduce all the presenters. But again, welcome to all, and we're glad to see you. Again, I'd like to thank the young professionals of the World Affairs Council of Charlotte, as well as UNC Charlotte's Career Center for helping collaborate in putting on this program this evening. And we hope that all the students, as well as the young professionals who are here, will gain some valuable information about international careers. So I'd like to start with introducing Rachel Ladenheim. Rachel serves as the Assistant Program Director in the Office of Intercultural and Educational Experiences within the Office of International Programs at UNC Charlotte. Rachel has worked in the field of international education since 2008, working both internationally in Mexico and Ireland and in the US at various universities. She has been a member of the Young Professionals of the World Affairs Council of Charlotte since 2016 and has served on their advisory board since 2017. Rachel will act as moderator tonight. Take it away, Rachel.
All right, thanks so much, Joe. Welcome everyone again. I'm so pleased to be here this evening with all of you and to serve as the moderator. We have three really great panelists with us this evening, and they're going to provide lots of great information. I'm going to give them all a chance just to briefly introduce themselves. But real quick, let me introduce the three of them. So we have George Sibley, who is the Mid-Atlantic Diplomat in Residence at the U.S. Department of State. We have Melissa Ratliff, who is the VP of Marketing at Management inSites. And last but certainly not least, we have Don Lerario, who is an associate at Parker Poe. So again, let me just real quick, I'll let you all know that I do have a series of questions that I will be asking each of the presenters, and then a few questions that I'm just going to open up to all three. And then hopefully we will have enough time for some Q&A as well. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A chat box. George, if you could get us started with just a quick introduction.
Yeah, good evening. My name is George Sibley. I've been a Foreign Service Officer with the U.S. Department of State since 1988. To give you an idea of how varied the background of Foreign Service officers is, I was a merchant mariner for 11 years before I joined the Foreign Service. And I can tell you I'm a very patriotic American for a lot of different reasons, but one is that any other country in the world, if you walked into the foreign ministry and said, I've been a merchant seaman for 11 years, now I want to be a diplomat, they would throw you out on your behind. But in the United States, it's a merit-based, it's exam-based, it's a difficult process, but anyone is welcome to try it, including you, if you are interested in it. I served first overseas in Indonesia, then I went to Nepal, then I came back to Washington, D.C. for 4 years, then I went to Jordan, and then the State Department provided me the opportunity to do a one-year master's degree at Princeton University. Princeton paid for my tuition. The State Department paid me my full salary. All I had to do was pass my courses. It was a pretty sweet deal. From there, I went to Calcutta in India. From there to Antananarivo in Madagascar, and then back to the United States. In the United States, I remained 5 years, but that isn't true. My family stayed there 5 years. I was only there 4 years because 1 year I went to Iraq, and Iraq was quite dangerous, so it was unaccompanied. I went without my family. The only time in over 30 years when I did not go abroad with my family. After that, we went to New Delhi in India, and then to Rangoon in Burma, or Myanmar, as they call it. And then I came back, and I am in North Carolina as the diplomat in residence since last September, October. So that's a quick rundown, and I have put in the chat some information for you to follow up and to get more information. I'll probably put that in one more time before we call it a day here at the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, George. That is certainly a very robust career. So I'm looking forward to hearing more of your answers. All right, Melissa, if you wouldn't mind taking a moment to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name's Melissa Ratliff, and I work at Management inSites. We help foreign companies start and run their U.S. subsidiaries here in North Carolina, but we can really help them no matter where they want to establish in the U.S. And I came to this job in a sort of roundabout way. So my undergraduate and my graduate career was in Roman archaeology. And so during that time, I spent my undergrad at UNC Chapel Hill, And then I did my master's at the University of Leicester in the UK, and I was pursuing my PhD at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands before I decided that it wasn't the right fit. And so I came back to the US, and I knew that I wanted to continue to work with internationals. So when the opportunity came up for me to work at Management inSites, where we were helping so many companies from around the world, but mostly Europe, come to the US, I really wanted to do that. I jumped at the chance to be able to continue to work with Europeans. And in addition, our office is also the honorary consulate of Italy to North Carolina. So I also get to help with some of those events, which is really great.
Thank you, Melissa. And I appreciate you sharing that, because it's not always a clear and direct path, but lots of ways of getting to the international world. All right, Dom, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah, hey everybody, my name's Dom Lerario. I'm an associate at Parker Poe. We are a regional law firm. We have offices here in Charlotte, Raleigh, Charleston, Greenville, Spartanburg, Atlanta, and DC. About 200 attorneys. So considered a larger mid-sized regional law firm. And associate, for those of you, I didn't know this before going to law school. In law firm parlance, associate just means you're not a partner, you're a junior attorney. So I got here kind of in a roundabout way as well. I went to UNC as an undergraduate. Was always sort of interested in international travel. My dad was an Army officer as I was growing up, so I never lived abroad. I always thought maybe we would. We came close a few times. My parents lived in Italy before I was born. I got to live in Hawaii, which is definitely domestic, but it's, I think as close to international as you'll get within the States. And so that really, that was an amazing experience. And when I went to UNC, I was very fortunate. I had a scholarship that provided for travel during the summer. So I got a chance to go to Ecuador after my freshman year. I had studied Spanish in high school, lived with the host family, really got my Spanish up to par and loved it. Was traveling in the country myself. So decided I wanted to keep learning languages. When I got back to UNC, I enrolled in Chinese. And that just sort of set me on a path to study abroad in China. Always kind of thought that I wanted to be a lawyer, maybe considered the foreign service or the military as well. And just through my travels and studies, ended up deciding maybe I wanted to do the private sector, but teach English abroad first. So I went back to China after graduating from undergrad, taught English there for a year to get my Chinese up, came back to the States, did a little bit more teaching, and decided that wasn't quite what I wanted to do long term. Like I said, I always thought about law school. So switched sides and went to Duke because it was close to home, close to family. At that point, I was starting a family, and grandparents are in North Carolina, so it was a good fit. And they had an international program to get a master's degree in international law in addition to the standard law degree. So went there and decided again, that going abroad at that stage of my life wasn't what I wanted to do again. But Charlotte is a great city, very affordable, has a great lifestyle for a young family, but it's got a sophisticated legal market, so I could do work that touched on international clients, and started at a different firm in Charlotte, but moved to Parker Poe after about 3 years. I knew about Parker Poe as a law student, knew that they had a really good international practice, and I had a chance to work with a partner who does a lot of work. One of the speakers earlier mentioned a lot of the German companies here in town. We do a lot of work with them, and Management inSites as well. We have a lot of mutual clients and help, on the legal side, less so the operational side, and, help them get started in their operations here, and also general corporate mergers and acquisition work. So.
Thanks so much, Dom. That's also very interesting background. Very excited for all three of you to be here with us tonight, because you all have very unique experiences, and it's quite diverse. So I'm just going to dive into the questions. George, I'm going to start with you. If you could let us know what international careers exist within the U.S. government.
Thank you, Rachel. A lot of careers exist, and a lot of agencies are present overseas. And before I get too far in, I just want to tell Melissa and Dom, you know, it's never too late to come over and represent your country overseas. My entry class of 49 had 7 JDs in it, so there's plenty of precedent for that. And what, unfortunately for the young students who may be listening, is that it's pretty hard to get into the Foreign Service right out of college. And so most of the people who are joining have gotten some experience and some leavening, I would say, in the process before they join the Foreign Service for whatever government agency. Now, you were asking specifically about what different agencies. The State Department is the premier foreign relations, foreign service that the United States government has, but almost every agency of the U.S. government is present overseas. So when I'm thinking about my last posting, I was the chargé d'affaires, the acting ambassador in Burma, and we had 10 other agencies that were operating there. So we had, the largest one was USAID, they're the Agency for International Development. We had an intelligence agency presence. We had Department of Defense, Defense Attaché's office was there. There's a big narcotics problem in Burma. We had a DEA office. The Foreign Commercial Service comes out of the Department of Commerce. They assist U.S. companies overseas and promote U.S. exports, as well as investment by foreign companies into the United States. Foreign Agricultural Services there. I'm going to forget some, I'm sorry, but I'm up to 6. The Department of Justice had somebody there as well. And let's see, the U.S. Library of Congress, you wouldn't expect that, but they had someone, not an American, however. That was a local staff employed by the Library of Congress there. I will beg pardon that I have somehow forgotten the other 2, but it gives you a flavor of all of the different agencies under the umbrella that's provided by the Department of State. And one of the things the first speaker before the panel was talking about, all the preparations you have to make before you go overseas. It was kind of daunting and scary. Let me tell you, when you join the State Department, we will get you your passport, and it'll be black and say diplomatic on it. We will get you your tickets. We will get you your housing. In fact, your housing will be free. In some cases, when you go overseas, you'll get a stipend and you'll be able to find your own housing. Most cases, as when we arrived in Indonesia, they picked us up at the airport and they drove us to our home. And we were already set there. We're just waiting for our stuff to arrive from the States. So there is a wide range of opportunities, and within the Department of State, there are generalist jobs, which people think of as sort of the traditional diplomats, but there are also specialist jobs. So if you have an MD, there are doctors who are Foreign Service officers. If you are an IT specialist, absolutely. How do you conduct diplomacy without being able to communicate? Communications skills are very much sought after. Even things like construction engineers. We're building embassies around the world at various times, and we need people who do construction engineering. So there is almost no career background that you could have that would not find a place in the Department of State. The one aspect of it that, again, the person who led up didn't touch on is that in addition to all of the amazing opportunities of living and working overseas, of learning about other countries, their geography, their culture, their food, you have the opportunity to represent your country. And I tell everyone that at any embassy in the world, you have only one ambassador with a capital A that is confirmed by the US Senate to represent our country overseas. But every single American at that embassy or that consulate is an ambassador with a small a, and you are representing your country overseas. How you carry yourself, how you treat people, what values you uphold, people will look at you and go, ah, that's an American. That's what being an American is. So it's a big responsibility and it's a great honor.
Thank you so much, George. Okay, what's the process? So now that you've shared all of the opportunities that individuals can pursue with the State Department, what is the process for becoming a Foreign Service officer?
So I'm going to run through it pretty fast, but the details are on that website that I put in the link, and I'll put it in one more time later on, careers.state.gov, because the process is different for specialists than for generalists. So I'm going to talk about the generalist process. First of all, you register for a test that's given 3 times a year. The next one is coming up in June, and the registration opens in 2 days. All right. So when you register, you are going to select what career track you are choosing. So for the generalists, it could be consular, it could be management, could be political, could be public diplomacy, or it could be economic. And that's going to largely determine what kinds of jobs you get, although since it's a generalist, there's some flexibility in moving back and forth. You are also going to fill out in your registration sort of an application with a resume and 6 personal narratives. And these are going to be very, very important at the 3rd step that I'm going to get to in just a moment. The 2nd step is you take the test. The test comprises 3 multiple choice sections, one on job knowledge, which people say is sort of a cross between the SAT and Jeopardy. I think that's about right. Another one is on English language, grammar, and usage. And the 3rd one is on situational judgment. And basically it's trying to assess, how you make your decisions and whether you make good decisions or bad decisions. The 4th part is a timed essay, and that gets looked at again in the 3rd step. So if you get through the test and have passed, the 3rd step is called the Qualifications Evaluation Panel, QEP. And that's where they will look at all those essays, they will look at your resume, they will look at the timed essay you did in the test, they will look at your test scores, and they will assess, do you have the background necessary to be successful as a Foreign Service officer? I'm sorry to say this is the step where most of the young undergraduates who are just out of school generally do not pass. Now, I just want to encourage you on one thing. The last entry class of Foreign Service officers, one quarter had taken the test and gone through the whole process and were admitted into the Foreign Service the first time they tried. So what does that mean? That means 3/4 of the people in that class failed the first time they tried. So if you do not succeed the first time, please, if this is a dream, if this is something you are interested in doing, don't give up. Do some other things. Take a job like Dom or like Melissa and work it for a while, and then try again. And you'll have that seasoning and you'll have that, sort of track record that will show that you have the ability to be successful as a Foreign Service officer, and your success rate will go up. But if you do get through, there's an oral assessment, there's a security clearance and a medical clearance, there's a final suitability review. And if you make it through all of that, you wind up on a career register, which basically is a list of people rank ordered waiting for a job. And as we have jobs that open up, we pick up the phone and call the people on that list and say, hey, Rachel, what do you think? About 3 weeks, our class is getting together. We'll look for you in Washington, D.C. We'll send you a ticket. All right. So that's the process, at least for the generalist officers. But if you're interested in the specialist jobs, again, careers.state.gov, or send me an email. I'm happy to provide you the information directly. Thank you.
Thanks, George. That was clear, and I appreciate you putting that additional information in the chat. All right, Melissa, on to you. What was it like studying for your advanced degrees from non-U.S. institutions?
It's a great question. It has obviously its pluses and its minuses. So I don't want anybody to, think that it's all rosy or it's all bad. But I think for me, it made sense for me to go abroad, especially since I was doing Roman archaeology. I wanted to go study somewhere where I could actually go and live and breathe where the Romans were. There's a lot of great programs here in the US, obviously, but I chose to go to the University of Leicester. That was one of the top ranked programs just for Roman archaeology. And they kind of looked at the empire as a whole instead of just Rome and Italy, which is what a lot of the programs tend to do. So it was really awesome to get to study the different areas of the empire. And I would say going to the UK first was definitely, dipping my toe into the kind of cultural experience, right? Because the further you go away from your own culture, the more cultural issues you're going to face. And it's the culture shock, and it's great. It's, I saw Rick Steves the other day on one of the other WACC programs, and he was talking about how it's growth, and it's great. So it was great to go first to the UK because they speak English, which I really struggle with foreign languages. And so, and I got to study what I wanted to do. And the other great thing about it too is that if you look at the different programs, I was able to do my master's in a single year for about the cost that it would have taken me to do it in 2 years in the US, just because of the way that the programs are structured differently. So that's another great reason to potentially study abroad if you have time constraints, or if there's programs that are geared to what you want to do that are better in different areas. And then, started in the UK, and then I kind of went, further. I went to the Netherlands, and I had a little bit more culture shock doing that, which played into part of the reason why I didn't ultimately finish my PhD, but it was still great to be there. I made amazing friends. I got to travel all around Europe. I actually dug in Jordan, George. I did a program for 5 weeks in China. I dug in Italy and did field survey work in Italy. And I went to Tunisia for field survey work there too. So it was a really great jumping off point to be able to further what I was studying at that time.
Thanks, Melissa.
Of course.
And so a little bit of a shift here. How has intercultural communication been a part of your professional experiences at Management inSites?
Yes. So as I said before, our office is also the honorary consulate for Italy to North Carolina. And so as a result of that, a lot of our clients are Italian. We don't focus on just Italian, but a lot of our clients, especially when I began, were Italian. And so having the background of Roman archaeology, having spent many summers digging in Italy, both from undergrad as well as for my graduate school work, I have been around a lot of Italians, which, you start to pick up on some of the things that they do culturally, that from a business perspective, if you didn't know about that beforehand, you might go, oh, that's, what are you doing? That's strange. One quick example is, Italians always want a deal. So they want a discount, they want a deal on everything. And that's just not necessarily the way that, business works in the US. If you're having a contract negotiation with somebody and they're like, this is the price, if they're like, well, get me a deal, I'm like, but that's not how it works in the US a lot of times. So it's really important to kind of know those little intricacies so that I can work with my clients on the backside of things and tell them, don't expect this. Or if you're going into a hiring situation, you can't ask what their age is, or if they have medical problems. Like there's a bunch of just really sensitive things that they are not going to know about from a cultural difference between what's done in Europe or in their specific country and what's done in the US. So it's really important. And I love that I get to do that for part of my job, is that I get to kind of teach them kind of the do's and don'ts about doing business in the US. And I still get to experience some of the great things about their culture at home as well.
Thanks, Melissa.
Of course.
All right, Dom, I've got 2 questions for you. The first one is, how can someone get started in, and what does it mean to work in international law?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'll try and cover it and not ramble on too much, because I mean, it can go, in so many different directions. I think it's just a learning process, and it took me years to really kind of figure it out. So, if you have more questions, please reach out to me afterwards or look it up, because, I feel like we can only scratch the surface on all of our topics here. But, just as there are, many different types of doctors, scientists, a psychiatrist versus, a pediatrician or a heart surgeon, the law has become more and more specialized over the last 50 years, even more so recently. And it's very rare to find someone who's a generalist, who can do litigation, that's being in the courtroom, cross-examining witnesses or drafting contracts. We've kind of siloed into litigation versus transactional. Transactional is, it's not adversarial. I'm a transactional lawyer, so I advise clients on business issues when they want to sell their company or buy another company, when they're drafting contracts with, distributors or their suppliers or customers. And, there's many other types of transactional attorneys, tax attorneys, employee benefits attorneys. And so, I just kind of touch on that because while there are all those specializations in the law generally, there are those within international law as well. I think, the biggest sort of divide that you can make is public international law versus private international law. And public international law is, related to diplomacy. It's the law amongst states. Lawyers who are involved in public international law, a lot of them will work for the Foreign Service or other governmental agencies or non-governmental agencies. You can work on drafting treaties or consular affairs. Within the military, there's, JAG attorneys who do, all sorts of work within the military, but also advising commanders on the law of armed conflict. Lawyers at the UN who work with NGOs and humanitarian aid. I mean, the opportunities there are very diverse. And then in private international law, so that's, the law amongst private parties, whether that's corporations or individuals from different states. That's sort of the subset that I fall into. And what I do at my job is, we are a US law firm. And so we practice US law. We don't practice the law of Germany or China. Our clients might go to those jurisdictions, but as US lawyers, we're only licensed to practice US law. So we advise clients on contracts that are governed by US law. In my particular spot where I am, a lot of the work we do is inbound investment work. So companies that are looking to set up subsidiaries, operations here in the United States, we help them form a legal entity so that they have some degree of liability protection. And the parent company, wherever that is, whether it's Germany, China, Brazil, doesn't face legal liability here in the United States as much. So there's a lot of legal drafting that goes into that. Then you help the company establish their contracts with customers and third parties. Also, we advise them on economic incentives. So a lot of times if a company is coming here to the United States and they're creating jobs, there are tax incentives that states and local governments offer. And so helping negotiate those as well. But, within that private international law sphere as well, there are folks who focus more on outbound investment, cross-border mergers and acquisitions. You'll typically see that at very large global law firms, where they're working with attorneys in other countries and coming together to, merge to multinational conglomerates. That's a whole nother aspect of it as well. And then there's immigration law, which is just by its nature international. And people can focus on individuals. They can focus on nonprofits, more humanitarian individual cases, asylum, for refugees, or there's business immigration law as well, where companies are establishing their headquarters in a subsidiary in a new country. You're helping move 10 to 15 managers here and getting them set up. So, what it means to practice international law, it's just a roundabout way of saying it can mean a lot of things. And, but, at the end of the day, it's practicing law. When I was in law school, I heard a partner from a very large, New York law firm, very kind of well-known within the legal industry. And he was like, if you're wanting to get international law because you're going to get travel experience or, get to see the world, it's probably not, the way to go, because, in my case, I'm going to see a lot. What I see is a lot of, different conference rooms in a different time zone, and I have a lot of jet lag. So, it's not like you're out and about getting to explore the culture. I think you can do that when you're a student. And, luckily in my case, that has not been, my experience. Things have kind of gotten sidelined because of COVID, but at my firm, the people I work with, they go on prospecting trips with economic developers, local partners, and do get to go and meet with people from different countries and get to explore those countries where our clients and prospective clients are a little bit. But that's just to say, at the end of the day, it's practicing law. So to get into it, what you first have to do is get a law degree in the US. And so I think, as the audience here is undergraduates, the keys there are, do well. So I think the key to that is being in a major that, you're passionate about and you enjoy. There's really no pre-law major. Law students come from all different disciplines. Engineering, science tends to be the humanities, liberal arts. I think, the key is you want to do well, because law schools look at your undergraduate GPA and your LSAT scores. So it's important to do well in undergraduate. And, I don't think you want to just check a box and do a pre-law, degree if that's not what really interests you. If you want to do history or international relations, do that because you're going to do well in that if you enjoy it. And then doing well in law school or doing well in undergrad then leads to law school. And I think that, the law is a competitive field. There's a lot more lawyers than there are jobs out there, unfortunately. So, it stinks, but the fact of the matter is, the law is kind of an old staid institution that, focuses on prestige and law school rankings, as much as I wish they weren't, so key, they do play a role in finding jobs. And, the fact of the matter is, the higher ranked a school is, the more job opportunities there are going to be, especially I think in the international area where it's important somewhat to have kind of a name or a reputation getting hired for a law firm. But, there's plenty of opportunities, if you network and are a good lawyer. And that means, you like reading and writing. It's not a lot of getting up in the courtroom and speaking and, giving a speech or anything like that. It's a lot of solitary time, reading and writing, getting familiar with the facts of the case or the transaction. So I think at the end of the day, if you want to get into that, you just got to consider, do I want to be a lawyer? Do the issues, in the law interest me? Because you can be doing international trademark work, but if you're not interested in trademarks or intellectual property, you're not going to be invested in your job and have a good time. So I think exploring the area, talking to people who actually practice law and giving you the reality of what it's like and what it means day in and day out is important as you explore this particular career path.
Thanks, Tom, for all that really great information, and I appreciate the honesty around it all. Can you speak to how you gained proficiency in Spanish and Mandarin and how that supports your professional goals?
Yeah, like Dr. Madsen said earlier, practice, practice, practice. I was fortunate to live abroad in Ecuador for a few months as an undergraduate. So I think if you have the opportunity to study abroad, do that, study the language before, get a good foundation. That's what worked for me is, learn the grammar, learn the sort of the classroom Spanish or, German, whatever language it is, and then go and live in, the country where that language is spoken. And try and, get out of your comfort zone. I was fortunate in Ecuador. It was just myself and, a mom and her daughter who didn't speak English, so I was forced to use that Spanish. When I first went to China, I was with a group from my undergraduate, and a few of them were what they called heritage Chinese learners. So they spoke Chinese at home with their parents, but they were learning to read and write it. And so we'd go out into the city and, I think the waiters or the waitresses would assume that our heritage friends, because they look local, that they were native Chinese and they would just speak to them. They wouldn't speak to us. And, I kind of relied on my friends. So the second time I went back to China, I went to a more rural province as well, where there weren't as many Westerners, and tried to, go and get outside of my comfort zone where there wouldn't be other Americans who I could socialize with as much. I'd have to go out and, when you study abroad, I think if your school, if the school offers a program, a lot of times that can be cheaper than, maybe some other private programs, and you can get financial aid and transfer to your GPA. I think that's great if you can do that, but, you can still go out, even if you're with a program from your school, go out, make friends who are local students, because it's really in that, true day-to-day interaction. And if you can immerse yourself and get outside of your comfort zone, don't just go to hang out with your friends in a foreign country. If you want to go to the local bar, you can do that here, I guess, maybe after COVID. But you can do all that stuff. It's, there's certainly no harm if you're socializing with your friends from here, but really take advantage of that opportunity to be abroad and get outside of your comfort zone and spend some time with people who are there and where you're forced to use the language. And the second point, as far as my career, it's definitely it just opens doors. A lot of international work is networking, and even if you're not fluent or can't write a contract, like my Chinese is still just sort of conversational because I haven't lived there in so long, but it opens up doors. It helps you kind of stick out a little bit to others. People will remember you, that you know their language, you can speak a little bit, and you stick out a little bit more from just another American who may not speak their language. So it's certainly it's good for the networking, the business development, and it helps kind of break down barriers a little bit, open up doors, and get out there. But to practice law in a foreign language, that's I think you really got to be sort of native level proficiency to do that. And you can certainly do that if it's your second language, but it's hard. And at the end of the day, as an American lawyer, a lot of the work you're going to be doing is in English. So from a professional sort of, day-to-day work standpoint, the English language and how good of an American lawyer you are is more important, I think, than the language, but foreign language certainly helps.
Thank you, Dom. I appreciate that. I'll just add, for anyone that has gone abroad, and I agree with everything that Dom said, and is looking to just continue to practice their language, there are a lot of, most cities I would say have language clubs. If you reside in Charlotte, the International House offers several different language clubs, or language hours. So that's a great opportunity to continue to practice. All right, so I have 3 additional questions before we open it up to the Q&A. Anyone is welcome to answer any of these 3 questions. We don't have time for all 3 of you to necessarily answer every single question, but feel free to chime in as you see fit. So the first question is, what professional skills should job seekers look to develop or strengthen in order to be competitive in the international job market?
So I'll go ahead and start, if that's all right. I think
Absolutely.
I may not be that interested in the other 2, but you recall I said there were 10 government agencies and I got up to 8. So I've got the last 2, and one of them is going to be key to answering this. So one of them is the Department of Treasury. We had a Treasury advisor in Burma, but the other one is the Peace Corps. And so a lot of times when the undergraduates say to me, well, okay, you're kind of discouraging me that it's pretty hard to get in the Foreign Service right out of undergraduate, what should I do to become a better candidate? And there are a lot of things you can do. I don't want to say the Peace Corps is the only thing, but certainly that Peace Corps, Dom was talking about getting out of your comfort zone. The motto of the Peace Corps is it's the hardest job you'll ever love. And you definitely are out of your comfort zone. You will go overseas, you'll have to learn a language, you will be placed in possibly in quite an isolated situation, learning the culture, learning how to get along with the people there, and trying to both help them develop and also to develop your own personal skills and abilities at intercultural communication, at adaptability and independence. And those are all skills that when it comes time to look at joining the Foreign Service will stick out and serve you in very good stead. So that's a one possibility I would throw out there for you.
I would just also add, since most of you are in college, to study abroad, like take the opportunity that you have now and study abroad. It's an amazing opportunity. You're going to make amazing friends, and there's just no other way to really experience a culture without living there and being immersed in it.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. What are the benefits of networking, and how can job seekers establish relationships with people or employers who may not live in the same country?
I'll touch on that just briefly. I think it's, it's very important. You just never know who, is going to come along and give you, a great opportunity. A lot of times it happens by chance, and it's just through people who know you and who know that you do good work, or that you're responsible, or you have an interest in it. So I think just casting a wide net and doing it more. It's certainly not the most natural thing for me to go out and talk to strangers and do that. But going to events like this, hopefully in a few months we'll be back to in-person events. doing that, meeting people. And I think if, you want to meet people who are in different countries or get to know them, LinkedIn was discussed earlier, doing that, reading articles maybe someone has written, or, alumni networks. If you go to your alumni office and ask, they might have a database that shows where alumni live, and, you can reach out to them. A lot of times, that's a shared connection, just finding something shared, a commonality, and, expressing interest in that, and letting that person know that you're interested in what they are as well. And, you never know what that can lead to.
All right, thank you, Dom.
Yeah, I would kind of say that like networking never really ends, because even, the job that we're doing right now, like most of the clients that we get because we're networking. Like we work with Dom, and we talk to other people who are in the international space that are bringing over foreign direct investment, whether it's with the EDPNC or the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance. And we attend WACC events, and we go to the International House, and we travel abroad when we can. We've gone to Select USA, where a lot of companies are who are interested in investing into the US. They go to the Select USA Summit and to learn more about the US. So networking is something that you're going to need to do for your entire career. So if you start early and get more comfortable with it, it'll definitely help you as you continue on your job search, and as in your career after that. So.
Thank you both. All right, one final question from me. Based on your experience, would you find it more beneficial to attend graduate school before beginning your career, or return after gaining practical experience? And all three of you are welcome to answer this question.
I'll go ahead and start. I actually took 2 years in between my undergrad and before I started my grad school. And for me, that was really important, not just from a maturity standpoint. I felt like I was on better footing when I started grad school, but also from a financial standpoint. I was able to work and save up money so that I wasn't in massive debt when I graduated from my programs, which I think is something that is very scary, and you don't want to necessarily start off that way and feel like you have to take a job just because you need money to pay things back. So taking a little bit of a breather in between undergrad and your graduate school can give you not just skills that will help you in grad school and afterwards when you're looking for your job, but also put you in a better financial situation so that you're not as stressed when you do graduate.
Yeah, I'm definitely a big proponent of trying to get work experience before grad school. I think you can there's so many opportunities out there, and when you're right out of undergrad, it's just a time that's great for exploring. And I think a lot of people, in years past maybe went straight through from undergrad to law school, but I think it's a great way to build your skills. A lot of, any job, any profession, it's soft skills, and, getting out there and doing a job, getting outside of the classroom environment in the real world, having to deal with, difficult clients or difficult bosses, or, learning from people what you like in a boss, what you like, in a coworker, learning how to operate in an environment like that is really, crucial. And I think that, it gives you a nice perspective, and you can decide, it gives you something to compare to later on too, so that you have some perspective on what you're doing. And, maybe, you will find something else that you're more passionate about. You never know. So I think, getting out there, in my case, I'm glad that I did that. And I think that, especially with law school, it's just, it's a lot of time to kind of be out of the workforce and confined to books. So it's good to, go out and do something that you may not get a chance to do again.
I would agree with both of them, with one exception, and I'm
George, I think you muted.
George, you muted yourself.
Okay, sorry. I agree with Dom, but I'm with one exception. I put in the chat. The State Department has a couple of fellowships. They're very competitive, but if you can get those graduate school fellowships, the youngest people in these entering classes, remember I mentioned that the people just out of undergraduate tended not to get in. but the youngest graduates are coming out of the Wrangell and Pickering fellowships. And those are amazing opportunities. They will pay you almost $42,000 a year towards your tuition and fees and expenses. They will provide you paid internships between your school years as a graduate student, and provided you're successful, they will get you an entree into the Foreign Service itself, which is why the youngest new members of the Foreign Service classes tend to be Wrangell and Pickering fellows. The requirements, we are looking for people who are either in underrepresented groups, women, and people who have significant financial hardship. So if you are in one of those three categories and have strong grades, because they're very competitive, I encourage you to look at the Wrangell and Pickering fellowships. And in that case, if you want to go straight into graduate school, that's fine. Otherwise, I would tend to agree with Melissa and Dom that doing some other interesting things before you go back to school is probably a good idea.
All right, that's great. Great information, all three of you. Thank you so much for all of your contributions this evening. We have about 10 minutes left for our panelists. I do have two questions I see in the Q&A chat box. So if you all, not panelists, our attendees, have other questions, please feel free to throw them in there. And I'll just go through as many as I can. And panelists, feel free to answer any of these questions. What soft skills do you believe are critical to most global employers, particularly in this post-COVID environment?
Well, I think if you're planning to work internationally, the ability to adapt to cultural differences effectively and perform effectively in a different cultural milieu is probably at the top of that. I mean, there are a whole range of other things that would apply wherever you are, right? And if you had a job in Durham, but for that international element, having those cross-cultural capabilities would be key.
And I think just with any job, also communication. I mean, what I'm doing is marketing. So I'm helping these foreign companies take the messaging that they want to have in their foreign language and turn it into what needs to be done for the American market. So, your ability to communicate via video or email or over the phone, any of the in person, all of those things are really key.
Yeah, and just flexibility, being able to roll with it when things are done differently, like just recognize that, hey, it's different. Don't get, mad. You might, be frustrated internally, but, just not, not expressing that because people aren't doing things the way you expect them to do it or what you're used to. And just kind of rolling with things and expecting the unexpected.
I think we have all been forced to do a little bit of that this year. Would you say there is any global competitiveness? Would you say there is any global competitiveness advantage to forming connections to local international communities if you are looking for a job in a specific country or region?
I would say yes. I mean, we all know that there's a lot of Germans here, and they obviously still have connections back home. So especially if you're looking to try and get a job in Germany, networking in that sphere is really important because there are a lot of local resources here that could help you to maybe find something. So I think, as with anything, using your connections is always going to give you a leg up than if you're going into something blind. So I think you should use the internationals that we have here for sure.
Yeah, I would just echo that. It's the wider you can cast your net and network, a lot of what happens is serendipity, and you never know how one connection can lead to another. So I think do what you can, and you never know. A lot of times it may not lead to anything, but it's it's just kind of the journey. You're getting out there, you're meeting folks, and You never know what door will lead to another.
All right, I'm just looking at the chat real quick to make sure I haven't missed any questions there. I know that George has been responding to some questions. Thank you for doing that. Okay. Looks like we have another question. This one is for George. It seems like there's no single path for a future as a Foreign Service officer. If it's not a degree path that qualifies you, what would you say qualifies a Foreign Service officer as far as general experience and interests?
Yeah, I mean, being able to demonstrate passion and experience about what you're going to be doing is extremely helpful. So if you are able to show that representing your country overseas is something that really moves you, that's going to help you. If you're going to show an interest in different cultures and different languages, in whatever aspect of international relations you're going to be involved in, that's going to help you. How you obtain it, there can be a lot of different ways. I mentioned the Peace Corps as one route. That's only one possibility. We have people who go on the Hill and get jobs on the Hill and then apply and are successful in the Foreign Service. We have people who worked for law firms and got tired of the law, Dom, and they decided to go ahead and apply and join the Foreign Service. So there are a lot of different routes, but basically it entails really you doing something that moves you, that is important, that you are professionally engaged with. If you get out of school and work at McDonald's for 5 years, even if you become a shift manager, that's probably not going to check the box in terms of showing that commitment and that passion to your professional growth.
Dom and Melissa, you're getting recruited real hard tonight.
I actually had a coworker who texted me and said, "Don't even think about it." but to be fair, I have thought about it. It's one of the things that I looked at doing when I came back to the U.S. because I love being abroad so much. So
keep thinking about it, Melissa.
All right, we've got a few more questions here. I think we have enough time for these three. I like them, so here goes. Are there any core lessons about international affairs, job hunting, or schooling that you feel people are missing? So I guess the job hunt or looking for schools abroad.
Sorry, Rachel, can you repeat that?
Yeah. Are there any core lessons about searching for jobs or schools abroad that maybe people are missing when they're doing that?
Well, I think from a school standpoint, as I was saying before, for me, most people know about the big schools because about the big schools like, here as well, like Harvard, Yale, or whatever. So it's really about, from a school standpoint, what is it that you want to study? And then where in the world do they have the best programs of that? Or do they have the best resources for you to go to? I had never heard of the University of Leicester prior to my search and applying. And so I thought it was, a really great program. So you really need to do the research. Google is your friend and find the school that's best for what it is that you want to do.
That's definitely good advice. Okay, since we only have 2 minutes left, I'm going to ask 2 questions. I want each panelist to answer one of the 2 questions, whichever one is your favorite. So the 2 questions are, do you have any funny stories about working abroad or any cultural misunderstandings? That was one question. Or what's been your favorite country to visit or work in and why?
Well, I'll start with the second one. My favorite posting, and as you've heard, kind of all over the world, most people are quite amazed to learn that it was Calcutta, India. Now they call it Kolkata. And I often hear from people, what? Isn't that where the black hole of Calcutta is? Which it is. But the people were very warm and friendly. The job was amazing. I was the principal officer, so I was the leading American diplomat in a region that had 280 million people. The diversity of that region was enormous, from the largest delta in the world, where the Ganges and the Brahmaputra enter into the Bay of Bengal, to the third highest mountain in the world of Kanchenjunga. I went to the Hornbill Festival, where the Naga tribes come together for a week and dance and have feasting, and it's, you know, you really feel like you've stepped into a National Geographic documentary film. So the variety of experience and the warmth of the people combined to make that our favorite posting.
I'll give a funny story. It was actually when I was digging in Jordan. It was my last day, and they were taking me back to the airport, and there was this Roman site that the field director always wanted to go visit, and he could never remember exactly where it was. And we basically just drove off the highway into the desert and started going because he thought that that's where it was. And we came to this really weird, it almost looked like a parking lot in the middle of the desert, where it was just these rock formations. And we were like, what is going on? And then we drove a little bit further, and all of a sudden there's just this road. And so the director is gunning it to see like how fast he can go. And then we were like, oh my goodness, we are on an airstrip in the middle of the desert. What is going on? And when we got to the end of it, we realized that we were on a Jordanian military base that we just kind of wandered onto as we just drove through the desert. So we started freaking out a little bit, and we like turned around and tried to go back out. And the way that we ended up going back out, like we literally were driving through where they had the tanks, and there were guys with like big guns, and we had to go through a gate to get out. And we were just like, hi. and they just let us leave. But we were like, how did they not stop us and say, what are you doing on here? And so we were joyriding in the middle of the desert on a Jordanian military base on accident. So
I get, it's so hard to pick a favorite, but I think when I was I'll kind of do a cop out, but when I taught English in China, I got like 6 weeks off for Chinese New Year. And I did a trip with a friend through Southeast Asia. So Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, just, I'm never going to get an opportunity like that again, I think, for 6 weeks, but Laos is great. It's just all those countries, warm people, great food, awesome scenery, the whole thing. But I mean, all the places I've been to are amazing. So I don't want to shortchange any one of them.
All of these stories are certainly making me miss international travel. Right, so that is it for this evening. Before I pass it over, though, I just want to thank all of the panelists once again. You guys were fantastic. I really appreciated hearing about your experience and the different places that you have traveled to. I just want to let the attendees know that they have all agreed to being contacted. So I know that we didn't have a lot of time this evening, so if you have follow-up questions for any of them, I know George already put his contact information in the chat. I'm about to put Dom's in there. Melissa, if you wouldn't mind sharing yours, attendees, please feel free. They're such a great resource. So again, if you have follow-up questions, don't hesitate to reach out. At this point, I'm going to turn it over. I think I'm turning it over to Jessie.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. And thank you to all of our participants and panelists. And another big thank you to our partners tonight, UNC Charlotte's Office of International Programs and the Career Center. So if any of these topics interest you, you want to work abroad in an international field, there is a place for you at the World Affairs Council of Charlotte. Particularly our young professionals, we have so many different ways to get engaged with the community, both domestic and abroad. Everything from cultural workshops, dance classes, cooking classes, to more international career panels like this. We typically do graduate school workshops as well, speaker series. We've done a couple foreign service officer workshops with previous diplomats and residents. So tons of ways to get engaged with your community and help bring the world to Charlotte. You're also encouraged to look at upcoming programs with the World Affairs Council of Charlotte. We have incredible speakers that encompass academic experts, ambassadors from around the world, and leading CEOs from any country you can imagine. So with that, we appreciate you all coming tonight, and we hope to see you at another event in the future.
Thanks, Jessie. Thanks, everyone.